Hi, this is Scott from Chino Basin Water Conservation District here at the Waterwise Community Center in our California native planting in our public park. And today I want to share a very important tip with you about how to get bushy California native sages established. Today we're looking at white sage, Salvia apiana, but this applies to all of the other bushy native sages as well. There's going to come a time in the first spring after your plants are planted where they're going to be induced by the change in the weather to grow extended long branches just like we see here and get ready to bloom. However, many of our native sages, when they're transplanted from a 1-gallon pot, whether it's a number of months before the previous fall, through the winter or the spring, are going to grow so abundantly just like this before they really have established the structural strength to be able to hold the weight of all of the flowers that are going to come at the end of these stalks. And what happens to many people after that happens is that the weight of those flowers are going to break some of the main branches of that sage plant. Now, if that happens to you, it's not necessarily the end of that plant, and oftentimes they can resprout from that. However, you're going to end up with a plant with a compromised structure that's going to be a little bit more prone to rotting or other issues long term. And so in order to help avoid this and to actually give you many more flowers later in the season, we highly recommend that when your sages, only in their first season, start to do this, you actually come through with your pruners and cutting just above what's called a node, the areas where the new leaves are emerging. You want to cut each stem on your young sage approximately halfway back. Doesn't need to be exactly half. You don't want to get your ruler out or a measuring tape or anything, but what we're trying to do is give this a hard cut back to induce more bushing and give these stems just a little bit more time to establish some structural strength and stability before they go into bloom. And so that's going to feel like you're doing major surgery on this plant that you're maybe excited to just see really starting to grow after you planted it. But I promise you, this is a really good investment in the long-term health, visual appeal, and stability of your native sage plants. And in addition to that, what this does is at each of these cuts, you're inducing more branching. So where you cut one branch is then going to bud out and become multiple branches. So not only are you going to get a bushier, more full-looking plant, you are also going to be rewarded with many more flowers just a little bit later in the season when the new flowers do emerge. So here is what we removed. Here is what's left. And take a quick note at where we trimmed just about a 1/4 inch or so above these node areas where the leaves emerge. That's going to give us the quickest recovery of this plant from these surgical pruning cuts and result in that nice new bushy growth that we're looking for. So one additional quick example, your sages at home may or may not be as full as the one that I just demonstrated on when it is time for you to do your cutback. And so here's an example of one that was planted after the other one, and it's not as full yet, and this is a public park area. This saw one little branch broke, but you can see how abundantly it's already resprouting. And so we're just going to really focus on the ones that look like they might be compromised if they grow even more. So here we're going to cut this back about halfway, and maybe these will just sort of what's called pinching to get ahead of it. And we'll keep an eye on this over the next number of weeks and see if we need to return for a second cut, but this might be sufficient. If you found this video helpful, be sure to give it a thumbs up and be sure to subscribe to our channel for all of our upcoming content about maintenance tips and tricks and how-to DIY projects for your home garden.